Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to another rousing live stream with our favorite reviewer and calibrator on air, Valley Electronics, Robert Zohn, and John Reformato. Thank you so much for making time and letting everyone know today we only have them for exactly 1 hour. So we need to respect their time. What I want to do is get into your thoughts about the TVs, the Samsung flagships, and all the other models that you might want to mention, and then leave maybe 10 minutes at the end for questions. So everyone who's out there with questions, hold on tight. We'll get to them. And I'm sure as we're talking and the screen is scrolling, Robert, you're going to see these comments and you can address them at the very end. Okay, so today, this is very exciting because this is the first year that I think I've seen where everyone's excited about everything. I mean, we're talking, obviously, the OLEDs were awesome, what you guys did, right? And then we had the LG G1 that turns out to be a winner. And then, of course, the A90J, and then the Samsung QN90A is a beast. It's super bright. It appears to be an improvement, but we'll let John talk about exactly how improved that is. And of course, maybe the best TV that Samsung has this year is the QN900A, their flagship 8K. A lot of people are wondering, is it worth jumping from the 4K to 8K? Let's say money's no object. They don't want to be throwing money out the window. Mm-hmm. So something we'd love to hear you talk about. And I know sometime at the end of summer, right, we have a shootout coming up. So that's something that I just wanted to post up there. It says, hey, when all the TVs are in at Valley Electronics, you guys, we there calibrating everything, and we get to see for ourselves head to head all the great TVs that we have in the US compared at Valley Electronics. So with that out of the way, I'm going to jump into the QN900A. This is an exciting TV for me this year because, let me jump into it real quick. Check that out. I'm going PowerPoint today. I want to make sure we're organized to keep us on track. I don't want to lose any important details that you guys may have. So I was saying that, so last year I picked up the Q900TS from you, Robert, yes. And I felt that there was a few things that could be improved, and I mentioned that in my reviews. And this year, it appears they may have addressed it. So with that out of the way, I'd like to throw it to you guys and start with the number one question people have about the Q900A 8K, brightness. I mean, talk to us, John and Robert. How bright is this TV?
Really bright. SDR screen is about 500 nits I was measuring, and HDR 10% window at D6. These is calibrated at D65. I was measuring 2,600 nits. And
wait. 2,600. What mode was that? Was that vivid? Was that?
No, that was movie mode. HDR calibrated.
HDR calibrated movie mode 2,600.
Yeah.
Now that sounds to me like a record for any TV out there, maybe short of the Sony, right, way back when. But let's take that out of the way because it's no longer on the market.
Right. That was about 4,000 nits, I think.
Right.
Yes. 3,700.
Yeah. 3,700. Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
So short of that Sony beast,
is
this the brightest TV you can get in accurate movie mode right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. 2,600 nits on a 10% window?
Yeah, 10% window, D65 calibrated.
That's a calibrated. So if you put it in the vivid mode, you better put some sunglasses on.
Yeah, I think when I measured it uncalibrated, it was measuring in the 3,000s. I don't remember exactly where, but it was like maybe like 3,400 nits or something like that, because it was always pushes blue, right?
Yeah.
So uncalibrated was about there, and then calibrated to 26. It was consistent 2,600.
Now, how large was the TV? Because I know they have multiple sizes for the 900A. How large was the TV that you got the 2,600 nits?
That was the 85.
85 inch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Do you expect the 65 inch to come close, or the 75? Because a lot of people might still want the brightness, but can't fit the 85 inch.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it should be roughly the same, I would think. Right?
It should be, and we haven't tested the other sizes yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so as soon as you guys get one up,
they
let me know.
to be somewhat consistent.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. And you notice that it was consistent in the other lineups from Samsung previous years, right? It doesn't stray too much between sizes. Okay.
Right.
Now, talking about brightness, we also know that it gets bright, but does it preserve color volume? Is it clipping at 2600? What was your observation?
Yeah, it looked good. The HDR picture was pretty outstanding. I didn't see any washout or color volume. I couldn't measure the color volume at the time, but it didn't. Visually it looked okay to me.
Yeah.
It didn't look washed out or anything. It was fine. As I said, even SDR full screen, it was like 500 nits, and you can feel the heat coming off the screen.
Yeah.
Because
that's real heat. Yeah. Oh wow.
John, other than his test equipment and test patterns, he has some very special content that we both know very, very well. And we looked at it on the Hollywood reference monitors. We know what it's supposed to look like. So that's why we can make these judgments on color volume. Is it fully there? Without, we should take the measurements as well. But we have a very good feeling from the test patterns, the measurements, and content that we're very, very familiar with on judging the performance.
Now, this sounds like a definite generational jump over the 900TS.
Yes.
What is your impression? Because I know, John, you've calibrated mine and many others since then. What are your thoughts about the upgrade in brightness?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely way brighter. It calibrates better. It, as I said, it's a big TV, right? I know, it's. We noticed a little bit of blooming, certain areas. But maybe that's due to the size and how many dimming zones they have and everything. But overall, to me, it's like it's definitely an evolution better than what we had before.
And that kind of takes us to the next topic, since you mentioned blooming. So brightness is a win. What about the darkroom performance of this TV in terms of the blooming lifted blacks? The question, what can you tell us about that?
It's very good. I mean, we really didn't see any lifted blacks. It's just that when I was putting up some test patterns, when I was calibrating it, we noticed a slight, haloing around some of the patches, some of the lower end patches. That really wasn't that visible, with content, so the content looked really well. I didn't see any crushing or anything lifted, basically. Okay. I mean, this set gets, well, we're going to get to it. I'll tell you my other comment once you get down to the bottom there.
and that's, well, I guess always the question. And you sense that has Samsung elevated their darkroom performance a little bit with this QN900A? Did they push it a little bit further along?
Yeah, I mean, compared to the old sets, yeah. Definitely. It put it this way, it's the closest thing to the OLED that you're going to get. Okay,
fair enough. I mean, what more can you ask?
I mean, it's not. When we have the OLED next to it in the showroom, you could definitely see the blacks on the OLED are deeper, right? You can definitely see the difference. But this is pretty good. I mean, it was very close. I was really surprised, And when I measure it with the local dimming set, just a standard, I'm measuring, OLED black levels, right? So it's very good, yeah.
No, that's huge, because OLED black levels is nearly impossible to get on an LCD TV just because there's always something showing, right? So they found a way to almost shut off those mini LEDs, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. And, yeah. Well, now, what haven't we talked about that you want to mention about the QN900A that strikes you as, hey, I didn't see this before?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I thought up conversion was very clean. So the new processor is doing a nice job because it has to up convert to 8K resolution, the native resolution of the panel. And it looked very clean. So they did a nice job with the video processor this year. The built-in audio is good. I was happy to see out of the box variable refresh rate, automatic low latency mode, ready to go right now. So that was kind of nice.
We also didn't see too much DSC, very slight.
Yeah, minimal digital.
There you go. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I think that's been a complaint about, and this is a flagship as well as the DSC. Yeah. So on the QN900As, and the 85 inch is a huge size. I mean, as we hear from Whisper Status Brian, large sizes are really vulnerable to DSC. Yeah. Yes. What have been your observations with this?
We do see a small amount, but it is minimal.
Yeah.
So we did the DSC test.
I mean, none of these sets are 100% perfect, right? It's impossible, but I think it's an acceptable amount. Where I don't think you're gonna really have a problem. But as far as the noticeable improvements, I think when looking at content, the set had more of an OLED-like look to it, in my mind. That was the biggest surprise to me. Yeah. Because a lot of times, like even with the Samsung QLEDs, they just didn't get those blacks right. You know what I'm saying? It's just as good, it wasn't even close in my mind. But this one here, when we were looking at it in the showroom, bright light and, next to the A90J, which has really a bright screen and everything, the blacks look pretty, I mean, as good as you're going to get,
And what about the motion handling and upscaling? So we've always said Sony motion really is so good. Has Samsung gotten closer?
I played with the motion a little bit. They always get a little better each year. It's in an acceptable range. They have a lot of different options, and you can play with it because motion is really dependent on the person watching it. Right. Everybody has a little different sensitivity to motion. So I think Samsung gives you a lot of options to play with to try and get it to a point where it works for you.
Yeah, well, and I think this goes to that perfect question, the soap opera effect. Michael Parker loves the soap opera effect.
Okay.
And the Samsung, when you totally soap opera out, are you getting less artifacts, more artifacts? Because that's been an issue with a lot of the processing. Is there some of that fuzziness, digitization, pixelation around the moving object? What have you seen with that?
I think we had them in the good picture modes, which automatically defeats the soap opera, the frame interpolation. So I don't know that we've spent time in the standard mode or the vivid mode to really answer that question. Okay. I'm sure it's there if you want to enable the motion interpolation, which will create frames and help motion resolution, but at the side effect of giving it that digital soap opera look.
Well, the thing interesting, I did turn on the motion interpolation and play with it a little bit, and it was good. I mean, it was acceptable. I mean, in my mind, they did a good job, right? I mean, I wasn't like blown away by it, but it was fine,
Now, to max out that soap opera effect, do they just put anti-judder to the highest setting? Is that what generates the soap opera, right? So if there's an anti-judder somewhere, push it to max.
Yeah.
There's judder and deblurring, so depending if you raise everything up, you're going to get that soap opera effect at some point.
Okay.
The more interpolation you turn on, the more soap opera you're going to get. There's no way around it, right? So, but again, they have an intelligent option there. There's all different options on the Samsung, which lets you really custom tailor it. And you could, I would just say in this point, it's good. And it's just type of thing where you want to have the individual try different settings and see which works for them.
That's right.
I love that intelligence setting. I'm waiting for them at one point to say, give me high soap opera, right? I mean, at some point, just tell the TV, I want soap opera, and they know what they're talking about. And a lot of people are now shopping both because you have the 2020 Q900TS 8K, and they're going on sale discount, and you have the QN900A. How much better overall is the 900A than 900TS? Because now you're talking a few thousand in upgrades. Yeah. What are your thoughts about people deciding between the two? Save a few bucks. What are they missing out if they don't go 900?
I think it is this micro LED, this mini LED type.
That's what's doing it.
It's really a breakthrough in my mind. I mean, it's giving you, the screen is relatively uniform. It's very good, super bright. I'm guessing that as time goes on, we'll have more dimming zones to make it even better. I'm thinking.
Right.
But it does a pretty good job. And remember, you have a big screen, right? So I'm not really sure how many dimming zones they have there. But the larger the screen you need, it's harder to control. But I think it's the mini LED that really made the difference.
I would agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely over the QLED. Let me put it this way. Picture quality looks way better in my mind. It looks more natural. Closer to an OLED than the older sets did,
And this is at the flagship level. So a lot of people are trying to get into mini LED, but at the lower level. So maybe later we can talk about their options, because I'm really happy knowing that if people are willing to spend the money, they're finally going to get that flagship improvement they were promised after the Q90R, because the Q90T and the 900TS last year, it felt like they were holding par because they didn't do anything special, but now they're adding mini LED. So that kind of takes us segue into the Samsung QN90A 4K, and this is the one that I've ordered from you guys. You've calibrated my set. It's on its way. I'm very excited. So last year, I tried the 8K 900TS. I said, okay, you know what? Next year, burn me once. I'm going to try the 4K flagship and see what happens. So let's talk about the Q90A 4K brightness.
So yeah, so again on SDR full screen, it was close to 500 nits.
That's amazing.
And and this is all calibrated. And then 10% window HDR in movie mode, it was 1800 nits at 10% window, yeah, which is really bright.
Nits. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up there with all the major, you know, LCD sets, right? You know, they're all in that range between 1800 and 2000, 2000 nits. But when we get to the even more, I mean, the brightness was really good. I mean, on this set.
Now, I have to mention that this, to me, is pretty amazing because last year, it felt the 900TS didn't even get brighter than the 90T.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying thousands more. But this year, as bright as this is, which is pretty good, and then I'm hearing 2600, like, okay, you're actually getting your money's worth going to the flagship. So I'm glad that Samsung addressed that shortcoming last year.
One of the reasons for the higher peak lumens this year is mini LED has tens of thousands of little small LEDs. So they generate, that's what generates the backlight. It's still a backlit television.
Right.
It has local dimming zones. It has thousands of local dimming zones and tens of thousands of little mini LEDs. So they're generating more light, and they're controlling the light better so they can get better blacks as well.
And the other thing I want to comment on, you know, people are probably saying, well, wait a minute, I measured that set, and I don't get that, or I get something different.
Right.
I'll tell you this, all right? The one thing you got to know with these mini LEDs is you have to have a spectro like a Jetty.
Yes.
Like I have a Jetty, you know, 1501, and you've got to use the spectro to look, you know, the spectro's got to look at the spectral response, and then you have to profile your meter. Otherwise, you're going to read wrong. All right. If I take my Klein and just put a regular LCD type of profile in, or something that I've got stored, you know, from some other set, it's not even close. You can see the difference. It's not reading correctly. So you have to have some sort of
a reference profile,
spectrometer, to profile your meter. Otherwise, you're not going to read the right settings.
Now, many people may have the more affordable Spider colorimeter, and they might try to do it. How many hundred nits off could they be off? Because, like you said, like, well, I'm not getting this.
Well, the thing is,
what are we talking about? Yeah.
So the thing is, the spectral response of this TV is different, right? And I don't have a measurement with me to show you the difference, but it's different. It's peaking at different places. So if you just take a regular colorimeter and just throw it on the set, like an I1D3 or a C6 from Portrait or whatever, and just try to read it raw, it may not read it correctly. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I may put it this way, I can't guarantee it's going to be absolutely perfect. So, and because when I started reading that set, even with my Jetty, I had to make sure the Jetty was initialized, and I had to go through this whole process so the Jetty would see it correctly. And then once I got that working, then I was getting reliable readings.
Okay.
I just wanted to.
Well, that's good.
And basically, the Jetty is a very, very, very accurate meter, you might say.
It's spectrometer.
Yeah, but it's not as sensitive, so it takes longer to take the readings properly. But it's very dead accurate. And then you set those values into the normal meter, the Klein, so that it'll operate more with the more accurate numbers that are known to that exact panel.
It's called profiling.
Profiling, thank you.
So is it safe to say, and
profiling is a good thing?
Yeah, right. This is the kind of, I don't want to say it's controversial, but this is one thing that I think is really awesome is, so the Samsung doesn't have Dolby Vision, but without, it gets so bright and it doesn't have the tone map. I mean, to what degree does that make a difference? I'll test it when I get it, but I'm thinking 1800 nits on accurate movie mode. Most movies, with the exception of literally a handful, do not exceed 1800 nits, right?
That's a very good point.
Yep.
That's a very good point.
So there'll be very little tone mapping going. First of all, most movies I think are masked at 1,000, right?
Yes.
Right. That's
go above. So as long as you got 1,000, you're in good shape, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Because I know that Dolby Vision, obviously, they would like you to buy the 4,000 nit monitor, but they're like, look, most people, if you're grading on 1,000, you're fine. And I'm sure most people are grading at 1,000 just because the 4,000 nit monitor from Dolby Vision is like insanely expensive. So, yeah, this is finally, I think we can say that maybe not, we'll see, but Dolby Vision may be less of a tone mapping improvement if you don't need to tone map at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads us to darkroom performance. What did you notice?
So this is better than the 8K version of this unit, the 900. I didn't see any blooming in the test patterns. It was just like I had an OLED up, and same, near black readings. Black was black with the local dimming on, and I thought it was really good. I didn't see any anomalies at all.
Yeah.
But then when you're looking at the picture, if you put content up and you put it next to an OLED, just like the 900,
Right.
It's just missing something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just doesn't go as deep, but it's very good.
Yeah.
Way better than an LCD set. For
And one thing, we weren't doing apples to apples because we had an 85-inch 8K QN900A versus a 65-inch. So this amount of local dimming zones per square inch was greater on the 65.
Right.
And we saw that in content.
Yeah.
So this is something that I think if you guys just joined us literally in the last 10 seconds, what John and Robert noticed was that the QN90A had better darkroom performance, less blooming than the Q900 8K. But that one's at 85 inches. This one was at 65. But still, I found that to be definitely a win for consumers who are like, should I get the 8K or not? And so it sounds like this is even closer to OLED, because I think in the previous TV, the QN900A, you're saying, wow, this is as close as we're going to get to OLED.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is actually even closer.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very good. I mean, you'd be surprised. It's a really super bright set. And we were pretty impressed with that.
One thing that's very interesting is the way Samsung structured the pricing. It's almost size for size matching the LG and Sony OLEDs. The pricing per size is very much what you would pay for an OLED. So now the consumer at that same price point has their choices.
So
and how about the other stuff, right? The audio, how does this compare to previous TVs?
Yeah.
The audio is good. I mean, we didn't spend a lot of time with the audio on the A, but it's competitive. They do a pretty good job. I don't think there's really any TV, right?
Right.
That has like super duper, audio, without.
Right. How about the motion? I'm assuming it's very similar.
It was good, same as the 8K version.
Yes.
Don't see any difference there.
Oh, and of course, because the 98 doesn't have the one direct box, it only has one HDMI 2.1 port, but the 900A has 4, right?
You know that. Let's see.
But it has the one connect box, I'm assuming. The 900A.
It has the one connect box,
right.
yes.
So it has 4.
That has 4. Okay.
Are they all 2.1, HDMI 2.1?
No.
We have the specs up on another computer here. We're going to take a look. And
Okay.
it doesn't list that. It doesn't say that.
I know it doesn't, right? But that's been a lot of confusion
I'm
because
sorry, I didn't test that. We have the Meridio tester for the bandwidth.
Oh yeah, we could play with that when the Sony comes out, right?
You know what's interesting is that one connect box on the 900 is huge.
It's huge and it's heavy.
But it's thin, right? It's thin.
Yes, it's a new design.
Yeah.
It's brand new.
Right.
Like the old design. The old design looked like this brick, right?
Yeah.
This is sort of like a pizza box almost.
Yeah.
A small pizza
Very
box.
thin and narrow. Yeah.
That's my complaint is why don't we get the 95A? Just give us the option, right? But I guess they want to push Americans to the 8K, maybe the 800A. And compared to 2 years ago, the Q90R,
Right.
the Q90A,
A big
jump.
Very big technology advance in display.
You really can't compare the picture quality in my mind.
Right.
Okay. And now we're going to talk about pricing and value, because this is something that I noticed when I was talking to you earlier. Like you said, there are certain pricing tiers. So the 65-inch QN90A is $2,600, and then you jumped to the A80J at $4,000, and then between the 83-inch, 85-inch, you have $8,000 versus $9,000. The best 4K, arguably, or actually the only OLED 4K at 83-inch that's that bright, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the G1 doesn't go up to 83; it's only the C1. Right. So, but the prices are similar. So we'll start with the budget conscious, the 2,600, and then you have the A90J 4,000. And since John, you've seen both, you've calibrated both. When would you guys encourage someone to jump to the 4000? What are the use cases? What are they getting for that jump?
You mean from the? I'm trying to understand what you're asking. Like, so from the Sony to the Samsung, you mean?
Yeah, from the Samsung QN90A, $2,600,
okay,
to the Sony A80J at 4000. Now, that is price-wise, it's a clear jump, and the 90A is as close as we've ever gotten to OLED.
Right.
So,
but again, I think with the A90J, there's no question that's like the most superior OLED picture quality that we've seen so far. And we haven't seen the G1 yet from LG, but based on what we've seen so far, it seems to have the best picture quality overall. But if you have a bright room, and which a lot of people do, and they can't use an OLED because it's just not bright enough, with the Samsung, you can now get a bright TV that gives you as close, way closer to OLED than you could ever get before. Okay, so, but as far as darkroom performance, like if you're going to watch stuff in a dark room and you don't have a bright room and stuff, I guess there's a big jump there from the Samsung to the Sony. But the picture quality, it's just overall, it's going to be deep blacks. Like we have in the showroom here, we can see them all the time, and it just is a way different. It's just a sharper picture.
The Sony A90J has a very natural dimensional look. It looks almost like 3D,
right?
Because of the big dynamic tonal range gives it a very dimensional look, and it's unique to that product.
But how, like in the previous sets, they said, well, this set's like just going to kill the OLED, or it's just as good, right, or whatever, right? I think the Samsung has come the closest that we've ever seen it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I didn't post it because I know you don't have it yet, but the G1, the LG G1 is going to be in between, right? Somewhere in the 3000 range or so.
Yes.
And have you seen it yet? I should have, okay. Because then we'll have to reserve that discussion for later, because now you could split the difference. Are you getting somewhere close in between? So at this point, though, right now, the jump to the A90J, it's that contrast, the three-dimensionality, especially if you're in a darker room, right? That's when you really get that value for that picture quality. Now, how about the 83-inch A90J, approximately 8,000? I know it's not official, but the leaks, plus or minus a couple hundred, right? And the same with the Samsung. By the time the Sony comes out, maybe Samsung will discount it by a few hundred. So we're very close. And at that price, people are not, either one's fine. What do you recommend, Robert? So how does one decide between the 8K? At this size, everyone's saying 8K is the way to go. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, 8K does have more value as the screen size gets larger. Again, we all know that the pixels are closer together, more densely packed, and the pixels are smaller. So on a large screen, especially when you're up close, 8K has its value. But it's hard to trump the quality of an OLED picture, which is a pure emissive display with no backlight at all, and pure blacks and no local dimming zones. It's very tough to fight a real natural film look that you get from an OLED TV because of its emissive structure.
You know what I would say, just to add to what Robert's saying, it's going to depend on your use case. Like I said before, if you have like a bright room with lots of windows, the OLED's going to look really washed out unless you're at night, right?
That's
or
right.
you have some way to control the light. But with this Samsung, you can get almost, not exactly, we get almost the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Oh, and you guys brought up something I completely forgot when you talked about bright and windows. How about viewing angle? Because I understand that at the larger sizes, everyone is emphasizing viewing angle. Like Sony reserves its viewing angle technology for the larger sizes. Can you tell me if that works? I mean, is this viewing angle thing, does it make it closer to an OLED? What are you seeing with this new viewing angle technology?
Yeah. Viewing angles were good. They weren't perfect like an OLED or near perfect like an OLED. And in fact, the viewing angles got better on the A90J OLED this year.
But an OLED viewing angle got better? It's always been good, right?
It get better.
Yeah, but so in the old days, as you start going off axis, you get tinting and stuff.
That's true. That's right. Yeah.
And it's you still get that, but it's minimal. It just depends on how far off axis you get.
So to answer the question, Samsung did a great job with viewing angles this year.
Yeah.
So they did a very good job. Their anti-glare coating is good, but when you got sun directly reflecting behind it, set your expectations okay, but it was pretty good, the anti-glare filter.
The other thing too I want to mention, which I think is important, which I'm not sure what category this falls into, but when I think the calibration controls on these newer sets are way better than the older QLEDs. Because you can't turn the local dimming off to calibrate them, so you have to have it on, right? And a lot of times when you're trying to calibrate with the local dimming on, you're like fighting the local dimming. It's a real issue. But using CalMan, I use CalMan, the new beta that just came out, the 2021 version. It worked actually relatively well. I didn't have to fight with the TV too much, and I got good, consistent results, and I was able to calibrate it reasonably good, as good as you can get it, you know what I'm saying? So I think Samsung's done a much better job, on whatever they were doing with the calibration controls on these sets, that they work, pretty well, although a lot better than they used to.
That kind of takes me to kind of color accuracy, because oftentimes these TVs are relatively expensive. Just with the QN90A, 2600, that's still flagship for many people. Most people, when they're paying over 2,000, they don't want to pay another dime. I mean, this is their budget. So how accurate is the color out of the box for the QN90A? Let's start with that one.
It's hard, it's like this. I don't, only this, it's hard to say. I mean, the Sony is like the only set I could say that if you use their white point on the Master Series, you're going to get very consistent, almost near perfect results out of the box normally, all right, usually. I'm not saying every single set you buy is going to be that way.
Right.
With the Sony, with the Samsung and the LG and the other manufacturers, for some reason, nobody really knows. The set's always pushing a little blue some years, other years it's pushing green. I don't know what they do, but it's never really on. It's so... But once you calibrate it, you can get it relatively well. Now, I think this mini LED technology still has a ways to go. They say, Samsung's claiming, and they say they can verify it, that it does 100% of P3. But when I measured it, it wasn't 100% exact in my mind. There's still some room for improvement, which I'm sure they'll do as new firmware comes out and everything else to improve the color accuracy. But when I read their specs and stuff, they always have an asterisk that says verified, but whatever. And I believe them. I'm saying it is actually very good. But I think there's still a little ways to go in some of the calibration controls and stuff. And I'm sure Portrait's going to be working with them on the new sets this year to try that. And so as the months go on, I'm sure you'll be able to calibrate it better.
And you could kind of actually bring up another good point is we're only in April, right? Start of April. Happy April Fool's Day, everyone.
Thank you.
And well, so many people are asking, I'm going to buy it now. I want it now. But then we have other TVs still to be, and these are not cheap TVs. We have the QNED coming out. So I know it's not out yet, but if you've seen it, maybe you have some insight. Should people wait for these QNEDs to come out before they commit to a Samsung? What are your thoughts on the other models?
That's the big question.
Yeah, we don't really know until we get our hands on them. They're using very similar technology. They're both, they don't use color filters. They both have quantum dots. They use different names, but they're quantum dots on both televisions. They're both using mini LED of different types. The LG builds their own panels at LG Display. They are, I believe they're going to be the IPS in-plane switching panels, but we got to see them as well. I don't know. I'm so anxious to see them and put them butt up against each other.
Are you allowed to share with us when you expect to get it in? Because I know that you may not share it yet, but are you able to give dates yet? Or when can we have dates for the QNED anything, if people are actually waiting for that? Because a lot of people want the gaming features of LG on a non-OLED, right? They're afraid of burn-in. They trust how LG handles gaming, and they might hold out on that. So what can you tell us about just launch approximations? When should they wait?
I think it's probably best for me to do that with you offline.
Yes.
And
I'll share with my community after we get a...
Okay, very good. But it'll be before the summer of this year. Very, very.
That's all I need to know
Okay.
before summer.
Very good.
You know what it is? This year, there's been so many changes with these sets, you know, the
Yeah.
panel changes, their processing and everything else, that in the old days, you could kind of guess, you know, based on what the manufacturer says and what you're going to get. But this year, it's like we can't make any predictions. We have to really get the set in and measure it and put it
Yes.
side by side. Like when we get that LG G1 in, right?
Yes.
When we have we have the same kind of thing. We're going to put the two sets, the Sony and LG right next to each other.
Right.
And we're going to do some testing, you know, and compare it, you know.
And we'll be testing the color accuracy, the color saturation, the minimum and maximum luminance levels,
Yeah.
crushing, how the near black is. All the important issues will be covered here.
Yeah.
And so this shootout that's coming this year is,
Yeah.
I think, going to be closer than ever. Now, obviously, the A90J is so amazing, but still,
Yes.
it may end up being closer than previous years as far as non-OLED TVs are concerned, right? Because you've seen them, Robert and John. What are your expectations when they go to head-to-head at the end of summer? That's when the shootout's going to be. How close do you think it's going to be this year?
It's going to be tough.
I think it is going to be closer than we've ever seen before. Yes.
And how important do you guys grade brightness, right? Because let's say you put in Mad Max, it's 4,000, you know, graded to 4,000, and maybe only the QN900A comes close enough. I mean, do you have to change your grading system maybe to see if you can incorporate that peak brightness somehow?
Well, we've had sets. We've had the Sonys, like there were 1,800 nits. What was
Yes.
that? In 2018, I forget the name of that.
Yeah.
Last year, the Sony OLED was
Yes.
pretty bright. You know, we have a lot more sophisticated tools this year. It's going to be an interesting shootout
Oh, great.
because in addition to just having people look at stuff visually and try and make a determination, we've got a lot of other new software that I've got that we can do some real interesting testing after the voting's done to see really which set has the most color accuracy. And we just have a lot more stuff available. I mean, here's the thing, you know, we'll be able to take every TV and be able to use CalMan's new 2021 version and use all the new technology. And plus there's light space we have. Yeah, we
That's
have
right.
color space as well.
That's
We'll
right.
be able to use every TV that can benefit by this new software, we're going to use. Right, we're just not going to say we're just going to calibrate them all one way. If a set has an attribute where we can replace the 3D LUT and make it reference, we're going to do it. Right. So and that will show how incredibly well or whatever a set can be. And if a set you can't replace the LUT, if it's good from the factory and you can make it, you can manually calibrate it good, that's fine.
Yep.
But if a set has an ability to go the extra 9 yards, we're gonna give it that chance. So LG is one specific example of that,
Yes.
So LG has a really good shot,
That's really great because up to this point, there's so many people just, it's a shoo-in for Sony. Sony always wins because the way shootouts are done, it's always based on absolute color accuracy. What about the other strengths? And we're just picture quality, not gaming features, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like this year, it'll be a more even playing field, giving everyone a shot at showing off their strengths as it applies to picture quality, right?
Yep.
And tell us again, Robert, when do you plan to have the shootout in the fall?
Well, we're speaking with a couple of very major video scientists to coordinate the dates. At this moment, it looks like right after Labor Day, the very 1st of September, near the beginning of September.
Can we tell them who's coming?
I don't have it confirmed 100%. I have some very big names coming.
Because
As long as it's before Black Friday. Because a lot of people, look, they know how exciting it is, but they're going to wait until the shootout. They're going to wait until all the reviews and all the firmware updates are done. And you guys are like the last word by that point. And then a few weeks later, boom, Black Friday. So I think your timing this year is perfect. And I can't wait to see John's toys that you've been working on for the last 18 months. That's really exciting.
But I think
now,
without mentioning names, I think what's going to be really good as long as once we get the confirmations, we're going to have somebody here. Everybody knows
That's right.
that will be able. It's a definitive, expert.
Yes.
With patterns and
Yes.
can describe, what's good, bad, whatever. And that will make this a very interesting shootout like we've never had before, right? I don't think we've
Yes.
ever had them come, right?
No.
Right.
That's going to be fun. I am so excited for that. And that gives us about 20 minutes or so to answer questions. A lot of people have a lot of questions, so we're going to jump right in.
Okay.
And, well, a lot of this has been mentioned, but again, the number one question is, I have an LG C10, and why should I upgrade? Yeah, it doesn't mean they have to, but if you were to make the argument that one of these TVs is worth the upgrade, what would it be?
Right. So if you're going for if you have a C10, I mean,
There's no reason.
there's no reason to
There's no
upgrade it.
reason.
You're going and you're changing the room lighting, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you need a really bright set, then I would upgrade, you know. But other than that, if you're in the same dark room, the OLED is always going to, well, in this particular case, it's still going to be have deeper blacks. It's still going to look a little more dynamic because of the black, of the contrast.
Now, this is a good question. The 100%,
but it's worth answering again.
Yep.
This is a good question. I'll let you take
Yeah,
it.
it's 500 nits. Very close.
That's real bright for a full screen. 100%.
SDR.
SDR, not HDR. HDR is brighter.
some have mentioned that maybe the QN900A cannot hold its full screen brightness as long or as well as the QN90A. Did you notice that? This has been a comment by some users.
I didn't notice it. I mean, all I could tell you is I only leave those test patterns up for a couple of seconds anyway, right? So, but I didn't notice any immediate dimming, or it was very stable. It wasn't like even like with the A80J, right? If you try to do that 1300 nit test that they did in China, you can only maintain that for a second or two, and then it starts pulling back, right?
Yeah.
This is very stable. You know, I didn't see any movement. Yeah. Not to say it wouldn't move after 10, 20 seconds, but it was very good.
Yeah.
This is what we were talking about.
There's another good one. You know, I haven't compared them side by side on the Q800, which is the new current model for this year, mini LED with less mini LEDs, less local dimming zones, one small step down on the processor. I would speculate it's not going to be as bright or as black because it has less backlight, has less lights, but it's a value-priced 8K mini LED. So I don't think anybody's going to be dissatisfied with the value and performance, but I probably should be buying one or two and testing them. I'm sorry I haven't thoroughly done that.
Great. And of course, a lot of people are so happy you guys are here. You guys are one of my most popular guests. So just make sure you guys know that, hey, when you guys come on, they make sure it's make time for FOMO TV. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. People always are asking, C9 was brighter than the C10. Some say possibly the brightest OLED in a long time. So how about from a C9 to an A90J? Any argument to go upgrade or hold on to the C9?
The brightness comparison.
It's it's not all about brightness on the A90J. That's the problem. All right, if you take a C9 and put a 10% window up and compare it against an A90J, look at it this way. The C9 was brighter generally, right? But not every set had 800 nits. All right, there were anywhere between 700 and 800, nits consistently. But even given that, all right, the picture on the A90J is going to be way different. It's going to just look brighter because of the specular highlighting and the regular highlighting that the processor is doing. So and I keep saying this over and over and over again on AVS, it's just not about pure brightness, because remember, brightness is logarithmic, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have a huge increase in brightness for the human visual system to actually detect it, right, as significant. So it's all the other processing that they're doing on the A90J that's giving your visual sense as being brighter and looking sharper and giving you more three-dimensionality and stuff.
So let's go to that brightness question, and it would be, let me see, is this the one? There you go, the super bright. He goes from a Z8H to the Q900A. Now we're talking. What improvements? Because obviously dark room you mentioned is so OLED close. Can you tell me what he's giving up or adding? Should he upgrade from the Sony Z8H to the QN900A?
He's getting better blacks, similar brightness, but better control of the backlight, less blooming. It's a formidable upgrade. It's a nice upgrade. The Samsung Q900A. You'll have the mini LED benefits with more, more local dimming, so you'll have better control of the backlight, and you'll have better blacks. You'll have black cropping bars for the CinemaScope, and you'll have better blacks in general. So it's a nice upgrade.
And this one is kind of my favorite answer because it goes to the strength of the 8K. And I should have asked you that because this is important. At the 85-inch size, John and Robert, did you notice a resolution bump? Because we talked about brightness in darkroom, and normally I have 55 and 65 inch, so I don't even look at the resolution, but 85 inch.
Right. So
can you share with us?
So the answer to the question really is that, as everybody knows, right, is it's always going to be sharper with an 8K, but you have to be close to the TV, right, to see that, right? And Joe King talked about that, at a whole big thing about that.
That's right.
At one of your shootouts.
At one of our shootouts, yeah.
Right? So, and and he's like sitting right in front of like a 65, like it's like you never sit that close, really.
Yeah.
But because this set is so big, right, you can afford to sit further back and still, garner some of the improvements in resolution, which makes the 85 8K, better if you're looking for that. You can sit further away. But there's going to be a point, of course, where if you move too far back, your eyes just won't be able to
you won't see it, right?
Just the way it is.
Now, for us, and I say us, I feel like I'm a senior citizen now. How close need I be to feel the 8K? What are your thoughts on that? 8 feet, 9 feet?
I think it's 8 feet or so from an 85 inch. That's what I think. See 8K and say, wow, look at that.
Yeah, no longer, no more distant than
8 feet. Yeah.
I think this is a great question for John, and I've actually wondered about this as well. So we always get these peak window brightness numbers from everyone, Artings, from you, from AV Forums. The question is, which is relevant to the HDR specular highlight performance? What are we looking at or which window should we be looking at when we want HDR impact?
Well, see, the thing I've always explained this, right? Even if you go down to 2%, it depends on how the processor is processing the content. Like the Sony on one hand, like the newest Sony is really picking out the specular highlights, and it's really hard to reproduce that, even with a 2% window, because there's certain characteristics that like a simple patch that you put up is not really going to show. Now you can, I've some of my other pro calibrator friends, they've been trying to measure, they get a content with some specular highlight. It looks like it's 1,000 nits, and they try to get the meter up there and try to do what they can to measure it. But it's very, very difficult. I mean, that's why 10% is usually a standard that we like to go by to measure all the sets, so we have some sort of comparison. But surely when you go to 5 and 2%, the set's going to react slightly differently.
And I would say 2% or even less, a smaller window, is representative to the specular highlights of any image on the screen.
It's closer to it, right?
It's closer to 2%, yes.
Now, as a calibrator, John, I think you may see this, and I think this is part of the tinting issue with OLED. So the worst part of OLED is when the screen goes full white and then it's gray. And I think that's kind of, the white isn't the pure white they expect it to be. What is your insight? Is this still a problem with OLED? Is it always going to be a problem? Is the A90J better? What are your thoughts on that?
Talking about the automatic brightness limiter. So basically, what we've seen on the newer sets, and again, we see this on the Sony, we expect it on the LG as well. The ABL is going to be more relaxed.
That's right.
And so you don't really get this full white then gray like you used to get on the old Sonys, for argument's sake. That was a common problem because they're always afraid of burning and they're very conservative and easily pick that out. On this set here, I didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. It looked like it held the white, and because it was giving me a suntan, it's so bright I couldn't stay in front of it.
So the question is whether the G1 would do the same. So the A90J, you're paying a premium for that white, staying white, no ABL. Can't wait to see what you guys find on the G1.
Yeah, it's not no ABL, it's relaxed. I mean, sooner
relaxed ABL.
The set's going to protect itself, right? Yeah. And as I said, we haven't seen the G1, but my guess is, knowing LG, that it's going to be relaxed. It should be comparable to what we see on the Sony.
And I'm sorry to say to Corey and all others, it's very, very unlikely we'll see Samsung supporting Dolby Vision. They've put a lot of money in.
I think if they keep on getting brighter, they don't have to, right? They go, you know what? We'll spend $10 million getting brighter than pay Dolby Vision $100. That's what they would just rather do.
Well,
Thank you so much, Corey, for
the
that.
only problem with Dolby Vision is the only real good implementation is what LG has, right? And now Sony has, right?
Mhm.
Which is the TV LED
Mhm.
Dolby Vision.
Yes.
And usually what they do, it's a chip-based system or some hybrid of that. And because the TV then knows all the calibration information and knows all the room lighting, it knows everything that it needs to know to do all kinds of sophisticated stuff that player LED, it's impossible to do. So, firmware upgrade on a Samsung, even if they wanted to do it, is probably very unlikely.
Yeah.
And to answer Cyborg, thank you for that. I will have the A90J, the G1, the C1, the C10, and the X950J, and the QN90A to compare for gaming. I have both the AMD 6900 XT to test out FreeSync Premium Pro, see if that makes a difference, as well as both of the consoles. So to the degree that I can, but I think they all are going to look great. I think we're splitting hairs, but we'll try to find what are those use cases that justify going from one TV to the next. So yeah, I'll do that at some point once all the TVs are out. Well, speaking of all the TVs coming out, are you finding the release dates being delayed at all, Robert? Or are they on track?
They are much slower this year than in previous years. And everybody blames most of it on COVID because the supply chain of components from secondary manufacturers are very delayed. And also the factories have to have a limited amount of staff and they have to be socially distant all around the world. So demand is high because people are staying home now and upgrading the entertainment in their homes, and supply is low. So this is kind of a tough time to get enough.
And I saw that they're raising glass prices around the world.
Yes.
Corning is like,
Yes.
people buying TVs no matter how much you guys charge. We're just going to raise it by 15% or whatever, right? Speaking of prices, so this question really goes to you, Robert. Christopher Brennan, thank you. Would like to know 65-inch C10. Was it 2,500 last year? And can we get the C1 for sale, maybe under 2,000 at some point or something? What are your thoughts on the pricing trajectory?
I would be cautiously optimistic about it dropping that low. They're launching this year at more aggressive pricing. So I'm happy to see that. And there's been some change at the last minute in some of the pricing as well. But I think as long as supply is constrained and demand is higher than they can fill the orders, that there's no reason for them to lower the prices. Yeah. So I'm not as optimistic this year that we're going to see prices going lower. And if so, it'll be Black Friday before it happens. To any major degree, it may be a minimal price.
As long as the demand is there, is really what you're saying.
Demand is there and supply is not available. So there's no reason to go lower.
Someone mentioned, I don't know if you could share this yet, but someone wanted you to comment on the possibility of a 120-inch screen TV, Robert. Is that something you could talk about yet, or is that something you want to hold off?
Well, I do have a little secret. I don't know if I ever said it to anybody, that I will have a 120-inch screen. We're going to have Sony's X950H 100-inch, and that's going to be out very soon.
Does that fit through the door?
It'll fit through the door, yes. We've measured everything in advance, by the way. And we have a perfect spot for it to display it in our showroom here. We're also going to have a 120-inch 8K TV.
There you go.
By Sharp Electronics in their esoteric factory that they own, where they're going to build their own panels, or they are building their own panels in Japan and assembling it in Japan. So
wow.
120-inch 8K native Sharp TV as well, and then the 100-inch Sony. And of course, the ultra short throws have taken off, and they're all 100-inch to 120-inch. So that's.
Do you know if the 120-inch Sharp is a mini LED, or do you have any spec details you could share at this point?
I don't yet, but I will know a lot more over the next few weeks.
I guess if he's getting 120-inch sets, then I'm going to have to invest in some sunscreen.
Especially if it's mini LED, right? Oh my gosh, this is crazy. And for those who have a little extra money to spend because their stimulus checks came in for all 6 of their kids, they would like to buy Samsung 8K or the Sony Z9J, which is not here yet.
We have to see the Z9J before we can really say for sure.
Yeah.
But
Do you have a timetable that you can share yet? Not yet.
no,
Okay. Well. Okay, Jess, Kim,
it's
come
not
on back in a
away.
month.
It's not far away.
It's not far away. So
Yeah, hang in there.
maybe before summer, right?
Yeah. We'll have to put them up next to each other, take all the measurements and evaluation, and then visually look at the content we're familiar with on both. And maybe that's another good event for you and I to do as well.
Right.
For the public.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, definitely. Can't wait to get you on again. And for Bradford Taylor, I think this question, you may have missed John's comment. The QN90A is as close to OLED that he's ever seen from a non-OLED TV, and that includes the $5,000 65-inch QN900A. So if you're thinking blooming performance, the QN90A, the best ever, John?
Yeah, it's better than we've ever seen. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And they carry all the flagship brands for the last one ever. So that's saying a lot.
Yes.
That's amazing. Larger QN90A, smaller A90J. I know you get this all the time, but it has to be asked.
Another tough call. I think screen size, as long as you have a good TV, screen size trumps everything. It's only recommended on a 65-inch to be within 5 feet away. So I'm sure you're at least within 5 feet away. So I think you'd have a more entertainment experience, immersive experience with a 65-inch QN90A.
And I agree with you, especially if you're in a mixed room.
Yes.
Suddenly that QN90A is going to be like, wow.
Exactly.
So, and if you need gaming features, well, you'll have to wait for VRR as well, if that's important to you. Here we go at another popular question. And I know what you're going to say, Robert. Go big, 77-inch.
I think, again, the same answer. I expect the A90J to have a better processor and be brighter as well and manage specular highlights better. But it's not.
But we really don't know.
We really don't know for sure, and I don't expect there to be a giant difference between them in overall image quality. They're both OLED TVs, OLED displays made by LG Display. I would go for screen size.
Yeah.
If you're wall mounting it, it's elegant. Comes with the built-in no gap wall mount. It's less than 1 inch thick. Really looks very magical up on a wall.
Yeah.
So I would say 77G1. They won't be out until mid-June, though. They're very far away.
Oh, the
Yeah.
70.
Mid-June?
Mid-June.
Well, thank you for that. That's an update I didn't have. Mid-June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to
Now,
get
that's the 77-inch size, right? Not the other sides that are coming earlier.
a little bit earlier.
A little bit
The
earlier.
end of May.
What's that, the 65?
65 and 55.
Oh, in
yeah.
the May now?
Yeah, end of May.
And just real quick, gaming.
And they are available from LG Direct at
Okay.
a very high price plus tax.
So John, the A90J, if VR is important, you got to wait whenever the update comes. 900A has the FreeSync Premium Pro, but the A90J just looks so awesome. So if you're playing a Sony PlayStation 5, I think the A90J, I would still choose the A90J regardless of whether or not VR is working if you have the PlayStation 5. If you're a PC gamer, I'm going to have to test the QN. Well, actually, this is a 900A. Oh, wow. I don't know. 8K gaming. It's hard to say if the 8K processing is going to affect your gaming experience. I don't like 8K processing gaming only because I don't know if the TV can keep up. Right. So that's something I can't answer this year because I don't have the 8. Maybe next year I'll get the 8K, but this year I can't answer that. So good question, John. And we have a few minutes left, maybe 2. Do you have any expectations about A80J ABL, Robert or John?
Expecting less.
Right. We're expecting less, but here's the big thing with this, right? It's not going to have the heat sink, right? So my guess is the ABL will probably not be as relaxed as it is on the A90J because of that. Everything is like risk versus reward, right? So, Sony is a very conservative company, and that's fine. It's good, right? You don't want your set like self-destructing, right? So heat sink gives them an added level of security. Like Robert said, it's an intelligent heat sink, right? You can
Yes,
see
it is. Yeah.
I mean, when different parts of the screen heat up, when you're measuring it, depending on what kind of patterns you're putting up and measuring it, you can actually see it controlling the output, the light output. And after a while, it starts really, it brings it back, So without the heatsink, I don't think we'll have as much relaxed ABL. That's my guess. So I hope that answers.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Robert, I think you carried the 950H last year and you have the 90A now. So saving money on the 950H or jump to the 98, is that a big jump? What's your recommendation? Right.
And 90A, we're talking about Samsung's QN.
Samsung's QN90A, yes.
Yeah.
Their 4K flagship.
Yeah, that is a tough one as well. Again, I'm a big fan of Sony's video processing, but I would say that the QN90A is a very big, formable upgrade. I love the mini LED. So I would say, I think it's more expensive in a 65-inch. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 65-inch QN90A is $1,800, and the 900H is about $1,200.
And we have room for only 2 more questions. So this is one of 2. Should I just buy the 65-inch C10 now for $1,950, or is that C1 worth the extra $550? Robert, you're the man who sells the stuff.
John wants to take this one.
I can answer this one. Okay. General rule of thumb, normally, you always want the later technology.
Yes.
Because there's always going to be improvements, no matter how slight there are. But I think it's definitely worth the extra $500 because the set will be maintained longer. We know there's motion improvements over the CX. We know that the processor's changed and they're doing better upscaling and things like that. So I would say yes. You know, if you're going to have a choice of buying the CX now or the C1, I get the C1.
You're going to keep the TV for many years ahead.
Yeah.
So if you can rationalize that extra cost over the long term of every time you turn it on, having a wonderful, wowed experience. And also, there are some, there's 2 lines that LG maintains. They make a line just for the member club places. So I don't know all the differences, but they do take some things out of those models because they offer them at a slightly reduced price with some extra warranties to entice you. But they are, you'll see at the end, the model numbers have different designations on them.
And apparently, John, you calibrated King of the Roads TV. Do you know who that is?
The other day, yeah.
That's right. Very nice. Good. Well, you're going to be in video bliss.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And the most common question we have, last question for you guys, is this one. I'm surprised that people are considering both, but what are your thoughts? You've had one.
Z8H is gone unless you find somebody that has some left. And again, I'm a big fan of Sony.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's not. That's 2600.
Oh, okay.
It's the Z9J was almost 4,000 nits. I think the QN900A in this case.
It's going to be really interesting to see because this mini LED that Samsung has implemented is really different, right?
Yeah.
It's different than, like, you know, a lot of these other companies are trying to use the basic LCD type of display and doing all kinds of tricks and whatever to try and make it better and all that. But basically, it's still roughly the same technology, right?
Yeah.
But this is a totally new technology with new improvements, enhancements, and a lot more strengths. Than
and the Z8H is a year old model. Against you're talking about a current model that's just launching.
So, last question, and we'll wrap it up for everyone. This is from Cyborg T100. John, when you calibrate TV, there's a difference between USA NTSC versus Europe PAL TV.
Right. So because I only do the US, obviously, I really can't comment on this. There are differences, but I'm not really the expert to.
You're right. I couldn't answer that either.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry, Cyborg. We tried, but
we do have a slightly
different. Imagine there's a lot of differences.
There are some differances, though.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing 60 hertz. They're doing 50 hertz.
Right.
You know, it's like a.
So is it mostly motion differences, not really color?
Almost.
I don't know the PAL standards that well.
Okay.
Really
answer.
Well, answer that question.
Yeah, maybe next time. Okay, I'd like to thank our guests, John Reformato and Robert Zohn, Valley Electronics. We hope to get you back next time for, let's see, the Sony A80J is coming out soon.
Yeah.
G1 for sure, and maybe if the C1 comes out at the same time, we can compare the A80J, C1, and talk about how that compares to the A90J and the G1. So until next time, thank you, everyone. And he will not buy Vizio again. So we have to fit that in.
Very good.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. Thank you, FOMO.